Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we return on the back of Spurs, making it 2 wins out of 2 in pre-season. If you're with us for the first time, where have you been? We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're of course on X, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook too. And returning regulars to the panel means the Premier League season is getting ever closer. Jason can't hide his delight and excitement for it. He'll be with you throughout the ride, that's for sure. But I'm delighted to welcome back to the show alongside with Jason. I've got the wonderful, brilliant actor TJ Ramin and the superb Marlon there over at the Spurs Kings is back in the house. It means that we're getting ready and we're gearing up to the start of the Premier League season. Spurs, 2 wins out of 2. Of course, we've now just seen them beat QPR by a couple of goals to nil. The guys will get their thoughts on it. I will tell you from now, as you guys know out there, that Jason is an avid lover of his sport. He's currently battling not just the podcast, the live cricket, the live... Jason, fill us in very quickly, because he's obviously one of the key aspects that many want to know what sports are on that they've got to try and battle with you to watch. So what is out there for our wonderful viewers and listeners that you're battling with?
Well, right in front of me, I've got the TV on with the golf on. I've got the laptop on with the cricket on, and you're waffling on about football. I mean, I can't cope with it all, mate. So, and I'm just waiting for the swimming championships from Papua New Guinea to come on in a minute. So,
and the underwater... We're waiting for it. We're waiting. We can't wait for it. Jace, thank you so much. Like I say, also like to have this man back on our show. It means the season's getting ever closer. We've got the brilliant TJ Ramin refreshed, ready to go. When does this man not look refreshed already for Last Word on Spurs? TJ, how are you, my man? Love to be back alongside us.
I'm very well. It's nice to be back on the show. An illustrious panel as always. And yeah, man, 2-0. Obviously, much to discuss, but a win is a win.
It is a win. A win is a win. And also making up our panel, like to have him back on the show. As I said, that season's getting a bit closer. We've got Marlon over at the Spurs Kings. Marlon, some pros, some cons. It's the life of Spurs, right?
Of course. This is Spurs, you know, giving us the heartache already at the beginning of the season, and then also giving us joy as well at the same time. Typical Spurs, but glad to be back on the panel. Always happy to see TJ, and I can't believe the legend Jason is actually on with me. This has taken some time to get on with him.
I tell you what, mate, I'm impressed with that chair you've got. What a chair! I think you should stand up, move out the way. I want to see that chair. What a chair that is! Look at that, impressive. Fantastic, man.
You love that, right?
It's the only reason Ricky invites me on is because of the chair, nothing else.
Just leave the chair there and step aside.
I might have to get the cockerel embroidered on my sofas or something to compete with that.
Well, listen, we are back to discuss that 2-0 win over QPR. Look, let's be honest about it, Jay. Let's open up with you. I know, again, there's more pressing matters at hand right now than just a Spurs friendly going on in your life at the moment. But it wasn't the most prettiest game, but there's more minutes in the tank, and good to see a number of the academy kids shining again. I asked you this again at the start of the previous show that we did. Any real decent takeaways you got away from that one against QPR for you?
I thought probably Kulu again looked good playing as that slightly more inverted, played 2 or 3 wonderful little first-time little reverse passes and things like that. Brennan Johnson looked sharp, continued to look sharp, show real pace, put a couple of great balls across. I thought 2-0 was the least it could have been. You know, we had a couple of one-on-ones. Sonny had a couple of chances. So, you know, you certainly saw there's opportunities to score in us. A few nice little moments from Jed Spence where he was getting forward well. And then nice to see another young kid. And funnily enough, we were talking in a group this morning, and I said the impression that Will Lankshire's got of having jumped as the next big thing. It's a lot easier to impress at youth football than Scarlett, who's out on loan playing proper football. But don't discount Scarlett being still in front of Lankshire, and it's Scarlett that gets the goal at the end. Yeah. So, you know, if Scarlett had stayed at Tottenham last year and Lankshire goes out, you might have seen similar goal ratios, but the other way round. So, you know, there was plenty to take from it. But at the moment, I think for the first team, these 2 friendlies has been 45 minutes in the legs. And then the real job to impress has been the younger players, if you like. But you'll see a lot more levelling out, I think, as 1 or 2 of the senior boys come back as well. And then it does start to come down to first team trying to impress.
No, I think some very good points. I mean, TJ, bring you in. It's lovely having you back on, mate. TJ bringing you in. It feels like such a long time ago. What do you make of it? Is it just about getting minutes in the legs right now rather than any emphasis and focus on the results at this stage?
I don't think it looked like that to the players. I think that to echo Jason's thoughts about the young chaps and a lot of the comments as well coming in from the viewers and the listeners, I think that a lot of these young lads are coming in with a point to prove, to give the coaching staff a few headaches in the best possible way. Should it be Dane Scarlett? Should it be Lancashire? I was really impressed with the young group as a collective. They just didn't look out of place. The confidence that it takes in your ability, both mentally and physically, to play a series of one-touch passes from your own penalty box, under a team that's playing at home. Of course, they also have a point to prove. Nobody likes losing a football game, and professional athletes are always going to be striving for victory. And so having the ability, like I said, both mentally and physically, to play a series of one-touch passes, which not only gets you out of a box, but turns a pretty ardent defense into a pretty potent attack within about kind of 15 intricate passes. I was really, really impressed by the passing and the movement that we saw from this young Tottenham team today. And of course, we're a season now into Ange, and we know that that's his philosophy. If you were to sum up Ange in 3 words, it would be pass and move. And I saw a lot of that today and was thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, I think, I would say that, and again, maybe I'm holding to a higher count, but I think there has been progression I've seen in the last 2 games in terms of the way we are moving the ball. We are moving with a bit more of a purpose. You can see we actually are, trying to stick to a certain style, which is what, Jason, you've always called for, to actually implement a style, then stick to it, that's for sure. Marlon, to bring you in, look, a beautiful goal from Bissouma, and 16-year-old Mikey Moore now as a goal and assist in 2 preseason matches. Of course, he set up Dane Scarlett for Spurs' second goal against QPR. Again, I think there's a really good vibe around the fact that it is a lot of the youngsters so far that are really contributing to Spurs in this pre-season. What would be your main takeaways over the last couple of games for you?
So, look, when I look at the Hearts game, there was more impressive performances. Today was a bit more of a test because QPR actually attacked us, and we got to see what they would be like under pressure. And for me, quite a few of them kind of failed in that today, right? And the fact is, when I say they failed in it, is when they come up against a decent Premier League side, it's going to be really difficult for them to that's what's going to happen in Premier League games. However, the 2 youngsters that really impressed me today, and I think they need to have a shout out, is Gunter and Austin, the goalkeepers, because they kept us in this game today. And I think actually we could have been looking at this completely different if QPR would have, QPR taken their chances, and they had quite a few. And this is the worry. This is the slight worry going into the season, is the youngsters are playing great so far, and when they're on the ball, it's all good football and it's all good going forward. But actually, it's when we're defending, and we had the same issue towards the end of last season, and it looks like those issues haven't been sorted. So it's great to see them. It's great to see them on the ball. But there was a few today that I just thought, actually, I'd like to see more. Like, I'm really gutted that we don't get to see more of Lancashire, right? These 15 minutes that he's given all 3 strikers in the second half, I think that just says to me that he's going to keep one, and they're going to obviously be subs throughout the season, right? So that's why he's giving them 15-minute stints. But then our first team players today, like Maddison, I was expecting more from him in the game today. Right, he came on with the youngsters, and they obviously thought, let's see what he does, and he was in and out the game again. And this is the slight worry. But with Bissouma again, up until he scored, I think a lot of us would have questioned his performance in that first half. He was giving the ball away sometimes. He wasn't great on the ball all the time. But then as soon as the game went on, as we said, we saw the style of play, pulled it all back. So there was all ups and downs in today's game, and that's why there were some things that were impressive, but there were also some things that we saw from the last 10 games. And actually, some like Mikey Moore today comes out with praise as well. I should include him in on that. But the rest of them, it's going to be very interesting to see who's on that plane in a few weeks when they are going on the Asian tour and everything like that. Because for these youngsters right now, they have to impress Ange now, because the season's not a long way. And at the moment, we've only brought in Gray and Werner, right? And Bergvall, obviously, we'll see how that injury plays out. But it could be that we could be using some of these players on the bench when it comes to Leicester, and may have to use them when it comes to that game if we haven't brought in the reinforcements that we need. And we've got Mickey van der Ven to come back, Romero's to come back, and are they going to be up to scratch on that first game of the season when they come back? So there's a lot of questions, positives, but also I just have to there was some slight negatives that I was a bit worried about as well at the same time. But as for them, look, I'd love to see more of them in the next few weeks to see what they're going to be like against better sides, and actually looking at it I think Leyton Orient played Hearts the other week and they beat them. So today was a bit more of a tougher test. And if QPR did finish strong last season as well. So it wasn't even like we're playing against a top side, championship side. So it's just now we have to just take a step back and just see what the next few weeks are going to hold for these young players. But hopefully we will see more of them throughout the season.
Yeah, I've got to say, Marlon, I really appreciate you bringing those points to the panel, because ultimately, at the end of the day, this is what we are here for. We are here to analyse pre-season. And again, it can't all just be sunshine and roses. I think it's important that we do note that when you look at Spurs' pre-season games, there is an element where the run they go on does get tougher towards the end of that period. I mean, we know we've got Bayern Munich twice come the end of it. So you'd like to think the way Spurs have staged their pre-season, start off with Hearts and QPR, we then go to Vissel Kobe, we've got the Team K League. I think, like we've said there, the way Spurs have strategized their pre-season is that we're going to know how good they are come the end of that when they've got Bayern Munich twice. And again, it will mean Harry Kane's involved, Eric Dyer's involved. And I think that's the way they've tried to stage it. So like you said there, there's been a bit of a build-up. You've had, again, in the most politest way, a Hearts side that are not the greatest side to play competitive-wise. You've had a QPR side that, again, are getting ready for the start of the championship season. I mean, Jason, is there any real... Before I bring out an update on Bergvall, have you got any real feelings or any reservations you've seen so far in terms of defending, or do you think it's too early when you're giving players only 45 minutes each way to really make a genuine verdict on that?
Yeah, I think a little bit. There's also elements of players don't want to, run the risk, big tackles, picking up injuries and things like that. I know what Marlon's saying, but to be honest, I thought the biggest chance is Brandon Austin made one fantastic save, absolutely fantastic save, and Gunter's save just before we broke for the second goal was brilliant from the corner. But those two saves apart, I didn't feel I never really felt QPR looked like they'd get the goal, whereas I still think Tottenham ended up with 5 or 6 glorious chances in the game. So, but you're right, the younger players, it's not just about everything you do with the ball. I think there was one time where actually Gunter might have played a poor kick out where QPR were in, and I think one time George Abbott managed to get a good blocking on the back stick. But no, overall I'm not too worried, because I don't think when it comes to the Premier League game we will see some of those players. I think you're right, they're going to be bench options maybe in the European games that would be coming on the bench usually when the game's pretty much settled or done or something. So I'm not overly concerned at the moment, but Marlon's right, you can't defend quite like that in some circumstances in Premier League games, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Bissouma, funnily enough, was probably more the worry for me. I mean, there was one moment where one of the QPR blokes has gone down the right, he just ran past him, didn't he? It was like he was in overdrive and Bissouma looked like he was running in concrete. Well, that would be more of a concern for me looking at Premier League games than maybe an Alfie Devine missing a ball in midfield or something.
It's interesting. I will tell you, Bissouma has picked up the player of the match for whatever that's worth in a pre-season game. I'll be honest, I didn't know they handed them out in pre-season player of the matches, but Bissouma has picked it up, so good luck to him. Just to bring an update on Lucas Bergvall, again, obviously there was an overall concern about going down injured and obviously coming off in the way he did in relation to obviously how concerning that was. And just brought us up to date with regards to Lucas Bergvall and said, look, just a bit sore. Don't think there was anything significant on that. And look, he had a real confident start, used the ball well with his teammates, really happy to give it to him in tight areas. I think that's how I'd sum up his real, you'd say, cameo on the game. But I think when he did go down so early on in the 24th minute and being taken off, we were all hoping it was precautionary. But it sounds like Ange's words are after the game that doesn't think it's too anything of a concern, not significant, just a bit sore. Is that a relief, TJ? Because, I mean, look, I think we all feel as Spurs fans that there needs to be significant investment into the squad between now and the start of the Premier League season. But when you've got, I say, a kid like this, Lucas Bergvall, who's been really hyped up, not by everybody, but sections of the media and by Spurs fans, it would have been obviously a bitter blow to have lost him for a significant period, where hopefully we've got him for pre-season and beyond that to have a good start to the season.
Yeah, I was really impressed with him. Again, it's what's really important, I think, if you're going to play this kind of one-touch football, is about players taking responsibility. There are players who will hide. It's quite an easy thing to do, actually, is hide on a football pitch. You know, you can just say, well, I was marked, or I could never get into position, or I never saw the ball, or anything like that. Like, it's your job to make sure that you're not marked out of the game. You know, constant movement. Another thing that Kulu did today really, really effectively. I mean, how good was he today? He looks like a new signing. You know, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but he really does. His movement and everything was just excellent. Like, again, that pass that he played, the 1-2 with Bissouma, who I thought had a really good game today. I hear what Jason's saying, and you're right. Like, I think it was their right back or something just breezed past him. Yeah. I would think that's him saying, I'm not going to bust a gut in a preseason friendly. I do have an opinion on that as well. I think every time you put on the shirt, you've got a responsibility to chase down a player, but I don't think that would have happened in a Premier League game. But yeah, back to Kulusevski. I mean, he was marked by 2 defenders and just stepped away, created space, played a beautiful first-time ball back into Bis. So with Bergvall, he always wanted the ball, and his ability to play a one-touch pass, whether it was horizontally, vertically, or backwards, or, you know, whatever it was, to maintain possession and to ease pressure, was really, really impressive. He's 16 years old, and I know that this is a young man game. We just saw Ramin Yamal light up the Euros. It's a young man's game, but I'm delighted to see a bunch of those young men wearing Tottenham Hotspur football tops. And to your comment, Rick, that we need significant investment, kind of thinking, yes, there's a few key personnel. I think left wing is really important. I wasn't impressed with Werner or with Solomon. I'm not fans of either of those players. I think that is a significant upgrade that could be done and should be done. Whether it's Eze or, you know, Pedro Neto, or, you know, whoever it is, or somebody else, that's a position that definitely needs looking at. But I really like the look of these young Spurs players. And again, let's not forget at what a high level they've been performing at in the competitions that they've been playing in. So managing expectation and excitement, but I think we have cause to be excited about this young crop of homegrown talent that we are bringing through the academy. And as football fans, we should put our hands on our hearts and be able to say, I think we have exciting times ahead.
It's funny when you say manage.
I was just going to say, TJ, the other thing is, or is it Son on the left wing and then buy a number 9?
Yeah, that's a much better fix for me, Jays. A much better fix. That's his preferred position. Everybody knows that with Sonny. Werner, I don't understand. I know that his stats for assists and everything were quite good. But he's
sad at the moment I saw him. I don't understand. He just with my words,
brother. He couldn't buy a goal. And also we do need players in an Ange system that can play multiple positions. Like, look at what Kulu's done. Okay, let me move you away from right wing and maybe try you as this kind of free roaming number 10. You have to be able to seize an opportunity when it is presented to you. And Solomon got a lot of energy. Good for him. I always use this player as an example when people talk about energy and industry. So did Lewis Holtby. You know, you're still not good enough to play for Tottenham Hotspur, to play for a team that is vying to win trophies. He's too one-footed. His vision isn't right. Not good enough.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, when you said about, trying to keep expectations on the floor, there's Lee McQueen for you. Winning it all and clean sheet. Never change, Macca. We love you. Never change, Macca. Never change. Right, we're going to fly through the team for this one. I tell you what, Jay's going to be a long season on this basis, isn't it? I tell you. Listen, we have come off a 2-0 win at QPR. In terms of the way Spurs lined up, I will just say to you very quickly, Lucas Bergvall, Ali Gold, obviously at the game for us today. He got a playful stat, 1 or 2 on the cheek from Ange in the game. The Swede, that I said, looked to be moving a little gingerly after the game, but hopefully his exit from the match was just precautionary. And again, we've had that follow-up that hopefully, as Ange said, nothing too significant, just a bit sore. The way Spurs lined up for the game, again, it was a team of 2 halves for Spurs. They had, of course, in terms of their lineup, Austin, Porro, Gray, Skip, Donnelly, Sarr, Bissouma, Bergvall, Johnson, Son and Werner. Obviously, Spurs' bench, which you can just about see there for a watching audience. You've got Whiteman, Gunter, Spence, Royale, Phillips, Abbott, Robson, Hall, Kulusevski, Devine, Maddison, Moore, Lancashire, Solomon, Veliz and Scarlett. Interestingly for QPR in terms of their lineup as well, I think when you looked at their team, they had a debut for the new goalkeeper, Paul Nardi. And as Premier League ex-players, you had in the likes of Jack Colback, Steve Cook, also given a couple of starts. Interestingly for Spurs, there's no place in the squad but Sergio Reguilon, Ben Davies, and Brian Hill. I think what you got to take on that is that, as we understand at the moment, that they're hoping Ben Davies will be fit enough for the tour, of course, of Korea. But our understanding at the moment is that Reguilon and Hill aren't part of Ange's first team plans, and therefore it would seem unlikely at the moment that them two would be heading off on the plane to Korea. But again, I think that will depend on interest that comes in the next couple of weeks. And again, as we know, transfer window can always change, right? Jed Spence, again, part of that squad today. We'll come on to Jed. Decent half for him as well. So, yeah, I mean, again, as a whole, you can't ask for anything more than what the players are giving at the moment. It is only pre-season. Interestingly, Ali Blessing picked up in the warm-up about the drills Spurs are making. They had the young back four put through their paces by Matty Wells, of course, stepped up in that new promotional role. Also, Bissouma on his own with the ball being held to him by Montgomery and Jedinak, having to control it at point-blank range. And, I mean, again, it's been an interesting 24, 48 hours, if you're led to believe, where Bissouma's been over the course of, the last 48 hours. I think he's had a good time. That's all I will say on that. But I think, again, when you look at Spurs in general at the moment, you know, again, it's just trying to get players a feel for pre-season. And it was really a bright start, as we said, from Lucas Bergvall. Pat looked really confident on the ball. But what I think I would say from those opening stages, Marlon, whenever you got the same with this before Spurs play went down on us, was that there was flashes of the old Bissouma. I mean, like we saw at the start of last season, carrying the ball, shimming his way past one or two QPR players before a good pass off to the running Pedro Porro. The cross wasn't great, but I think an indication that maybe, you know, there was some question in Bissouma towards the end of last season. Again, he's got his goal today. He's played fairly well. Again, I'll pick up what Jason said earlier. One or two concerns in terms of his defensive attributes and what he brought to the game. But it's a big season for Bissouma. Some would say it's even a bigger pre-season. Do you think he's got a point to prove for you in this pre-season?
It's not even in pre-season. If he can get back to the form he had at the beginning of the 10 games, it's going to be consistency with Bissouma, and that's all it's going to be, because he'll do this now. Will it be another? He'll start off well and then fade as the season goes on, and that's going to be the biggest issue for us. Is he a summer player, like, kind of thing? He can only play, you know, once it goes back in time, goes back in October. That's it. He stops playing, kind of thing. But no, you did see signs of what he was doing last year. Some of the passing, even down to the goal, I remember that at the beginning of last season as well. So it'd be so interesting to see if he can carry it on and if he can keep consistent, because what he doesn't realize is Pape Sarr, he was just all up because Bissouma was kind of getting to bossing it in starting that second period of the first half. Sarr was then able to move, be linking up play with the front, you know, on the front three. He was able to get back. We saw some legs, right? And actually, the two centre backs, even though they're not centre backs, I thought it's going to be very interesting to see how Archie Gray fits into all of this going forward. Because again, I thought he was quite composed. He done quite well. But we all know he's not going to play centre back for us in the season. And Skip as well didn't play too bad as well, and he looked like every time he got on the ball, he was looking to go forward. So, and this is what Bissouma causes. This is what people don't realise, because he's bossing it in the midfield. The other players in there are able to go forward because they can rely on that DM person to, if they do make the mistake, will clean it up, will be there and be in the right position. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. But of course, it's just going to be down to consistency with Bissouma over the next 12 months, and we'll have to wait and see. We'll probably see more when we play Bayern. If he's going to keep it up, because obviously the next few games are going to be, you know, it's probably going to be the same as today, where he's going to play 45 minutes here and there. But you'll probably think that in the Bayern Munich games, he'll play 60, and then the other game, he potentially could play more, like 80 minutes. So we'll have to wait to see him then, and hopefully, we're going to see the Bissouma we saw last year. But again, it's all right for the first 10, but can he do it after that? And that's going to be the biggest question that is going to be on everyone's lips, because we know he can. We know he can play very well.
Yep. Jason, I can see you wanted to come in there on that.
Yeah, I mean, Bissouma, we talked about it in the group earlier today, weren't we? He's a really, really key player. Yep. Because, you know, we're talking about maybe having to go out and buy another number 6, albeit they think Archie Gray is a number 6. But what I mean is, all the number 6s we're linked with, none of them are anywhere near as good as the best Bissouma. We shouldn't be buying another number 6 to replace Bissouma. And you get that impression with Bissouma that he's come to Tottenham and there's the I've made it syndrome. Well, actually, there's enough talent in Bissouma to think this should be a stepping stone to a Madrid, a Barcelona, you know, looking at winning a league with a Manchester City or something. You know, Tottenham shouldn't be the ending step for Bissouma's level, which he should be demanding more. And, I'll always remember the interview with him with Yaya Toure. Yaya Toure should be what he's looking to be, really go to the highest possible level. And yet this is a player that's been dropped from the Mali squad, which tells you sometimes where Bissouma is, because there's no way he should ever be dropped from the Mali squad, and he should be a really key player for Tottenham. And yet we're even talking about buying a number 6, which is nuts, because like I say, the best Bissouma is by far the best number 6 we could have.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, look, maybe we'll touch upon his goal now, and we'll kind of go through some of the game analysis on it. I mean, it was a beautiful goal to come around to you that he scored. He looked on top of the whole game, really, to be fair, up to that point. He embarked on that run, beat his man, played that 1-2 with Kulu, round the keeper, solid at home. And I think the big thing is, Jason says this a lot about him, it does show you what he is capable of. If there are any doubts about what he's capable of, he's a formidable player. And as Marlon has said in the intro to the show, it's just about just getting that consistency, right? It's about trying to get that across him, not just 10 games, not just 15 games, but 20, 30, arguably 40 this season. That's how many Spurs have got in store at a minimum.
Yeah, when Marlon said, is he a summer player? It was a really interesting point, really interesting question, and something that I'm sure we'll be debating, over the coming months as the season starts and as we get, more regularly into episodes on this show. I mean, of course, we all hope not. He's so talented, isn't he? He's one of those players as well that has that kind of very relaxed. I mean, Moussa Dembele, one of the best Tottenham players I've ever seen. Just his ability to hold onto the ball and just glide past players with consummate ease and grace. I mean, the Rolls Royce moniker is one that's applied to a great many players. But if ever you were to pick one who truly was a Rolls Royce, just purring through the midfield with never a care in the world, he didn't even seem to sweat, was Moussa Dembele. And so Bissouma is a similar kind of style of player, just needs to have that kind of spaghetti body, almost like when Ndombele would pop up and just have us go, oh my goodness. He'd have that kind of way to move and shape his body that would just fool players. Again, perhaps older fans of, football fans, it was well before my time as well. But you remember Garrincha, played on the right wing, the Brazilian player who would just have this incredible body swerve. He would take 2 or 3 steps past the ball and sell the defender and then go back and get it and beat him. He has that kind of ability about him, which again is it's so reliant on feeling entirely confident that I can get away with this. So I think that consistency with him is a mentality thing. When he's on it and feels like a world beater, because to Jason's point, we're trying to find this number 6. We're trying to find this number. We have him, but we have glimpses of him. Yes. And so when he's feeling mentally on top of the world and like a world class, or at least like one of the best central midfielders in the Premier League, that's when we see him at his best. So one of the predicaments for Ange and the training staff is, how do we keep him in that very warm, fuzzy place in his mind, so his body can then go on and do these extraordinary things?
It's concentration within the game as well.
Yeah, for sure.
He almost gets a little bit, I've gone past this bloke twice, I can do it whenever I want. And he kind of gets relaxed or complacent in it, and you suddenly find, hold on,
they've nicked it.
How he gets dispossessed or something, and they're straight in on you. And you're right, with a Premier League team, I think we saw it with Wolves last year, didn't they? One of the goals, he lost it on their box, and they went straight down the end. And
well said.
So I know, anyone can make a mistake, but just even within a game, he seems to go through this little 5-minute where his mind goes to sleep, and he just,
I totally agree.
Totally not aware of
and again, it's all mentality, isn't it, with him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Physically, he has it all. He has all of those abilities. It's there's a lot of players like that. Like, how does one tap into whatever vein it is in his brain to make him believe, man, listen, we all have tremendous belief in your ability. How do we keep you comfortable? How do we keep you happy? What is it that we can do for you to keep you in that happy space, so you continue to perform at 8s and 9s and like potentially touching on 10, rather than the kind of 6 to 7s which we saw all too often last season?
it's a fascinating debate because when you think about it, he had Conte as a right disciplinarian that, quite frankly, as you could see, that relationship just completely broke down. He's got, it feels like the complete opposite in Ange. That's someone that is very relaxed, if anything, maybe too relaxed. So, I mean, I don't know whether, again, you've got to find a balance in the middle, but I think, the key thing was when Ange joined the club, as we remember that, Biss was late on the first day, took him to one side and said to him, look, I see you as a leader. And it felt like those first 10 games really kicked his arse into gear. I can't see what happened since the Luton game. I think we all have still been struggling to understand really that drop-off from the Luton away game onwards. But again, I will just say again, to put it into context, there were flashes of that Bissouma that we saw in the opening 10 today. Let's hope that we're going to see that through the course of pre-season into next season to keep Marlon's point there up the top of it. Let's hope he isn't just a summer player and he can perform in autumn, winter and spring to come, because we're going to need that with the amount of games we've got coming. I'm going to fly through the first half because, again, look, it is pre-season, as we know here. Jamie Donnelly, lovely inverted run to begin with, carrying the ball in the heart of the pitch before slotting in Brennan Johnson. And I think, to be fair, look, the first half, as with all these friendlies, players are finding their way into games. They're just trying to get, obviously, minutes in the legs. I saw at one point Sonny getting quite frustrated with Johnson as the Korean had plenty of space, played a ball in behind for Johnson, while the Welshman didn't make the run at the time. There were a few moments of concern with Donnelly giving away a cheap ball, and the QPR midfielder Anderson spotted Austin off his line, tried an audacious chip, but Austin did calmly collect. And we had one moment where Archie Gray barged over the QPR striker into the linesman, which many might not have seen because Spurs player, I think, was down at that point. So forgive me if you didn't see it, because I think Jason, for twice in a row, CJ maybe one of his first experiences. Broadcasting soon, right? Broadcasting soon, guys. We're going to get there eventually. We will get there eventually with the app. We hope so anyway. Like I say, they've promised it for pre-season. Let's hope they get it right. We're the second year into that one. Again, as we touched upon, massive concern when Bergvall went down after the 24th minute mark. He was replaced, of course, by Dejan Kulusevski. TJ's picked up for us already. Couple of goals in terms of him being the provider to those with those couple of really decent assists in a new position, as TJ touched upon. So again, we've got to hope for him. It's a big season in store. There has been tentative links. I wouldn't say I have any real credible source with a move for Kulusevski. Again, I think we've said this before on Last Word on Spurs, and I'll ask the guys this towards the end of the show because I don't want to disrupt the post-match, whether they do feel there is still that kind of player that might leave that none of us really expect to go. I mean, there's been that feeling of talk in and around the last 4 or 5 shows on Last Word on Spurs that don't discount maybe a player that we all might see as a favourite of ours could slip out the door between now and the end of the summer window. So it's one to keep an eye on. Marlon touched upon this earlier, actually, that we saw a terrific save from Brandon Austin. And to be fair, twice in a row now, Brendan Austin has provided a couple of real Buffon saves, Marlon. I mean, what do you make of Brandon Austin? I think it's fair to say that he'll definitely start behind Vicario, and there's an argument to say Spurs might still be looking for competition for Vicario. From what you've seen from Brandon Austin, is he a well-able, capable backup for you as an alternative?
He has shown in the last 2 games, maybe. And the only reason why I'm saying maybe is because, sometimes you have to look at when the goalkeeper's not got much to do. You have to kind of look at how they're, doing other things that, when they're not being kept busy. And he has shown that he has that quality. The problem I've got is when we come up against, and this is going to be the interesting part because it depends on when Vicario comes back. I need to see him up against a Bayern. I need to see him against top sides and see then how he copes with it before I say anything, because everyone's always said that if Vicario gets injured, right, for more than 3 or 4 games, we are screwed, right? And at this present moment, you kind of agree with that, because again, we can't. He's done really well the last 2 games, but it is what I have to take into consideration. This is QPR and Hearts, right? And Hearts haven't really started their preseason very well, and QPR, and look, it depends on how they do this year, didn't finish very well in the Championship. So I'm kind of just reserving myself before I sit there and go, yeah, it will be good enough. But he's been at the club long enough, and everyone forgets he's not really that young anymore. He's getting into his mid-20s. So hopefully for him, it's either he's got to take a loan deal somewhere, or he's got to really push Vicario this season, and hopefully.
Wait, do you think, Marlon? I haven't seen enough of either of them, to be honest. I didn't see the Hearts game. However, what I did see of both Gunther and Austin today was that surely they have a shout to displace Forster as Vicario's second. Is that fair? You've seen more of these guys than I have.
Yeah, no, and it's really, really, really strange that Gunther, that Whiteman didn't come on today. Where Whiteman played parts of the second half against Hearts, and then Gunther came on. So it's quite interesting that Gunther actually got the full 45 in the second half. And actually, out of the two, I'd probably say he was slightly better because QPR kind of has had us on the ropes.
Okay.
In that
I
second
remember
half.
as well, we've talked about goalkeepers before on this show. And it's one of those positions in football that's changed enormously. I would say probably goalkeeper and left back and right back are the positions that has just been transformed by the whole kind of Pep of it all, right? We're all trying to play like Pep now. And so how are both of these goalkeepers with the ball at their feet?
Yeah. And that's going to be the interesting thing. And that's where, like Jason said earlier, Gunter kind of gave it away a couple of times.
Yeah, I saw that. That was concerning. Yeah.
Game.
You have to have that in your locker, right? As a modern goalkeeper, if you can't ping, it needs to be 30 to 40 yards. I mean, listen, Edison can do it 70, 80 yards. So can Allison. Maybe they don't need that to be, Tottenham's number 2 goalkeeper. But ball at your feet as a goalkeeper is absolutely fundamental.
And out of the two that we've seen in these friendlies, I'd probably say Austin is slightly better with his feet. But Gunter looks like, actually, out of the future goalkeepers that we've seen so far, he's probably got a higher ceiling to reach, I think.
Right.
And to be fair to Gunter, where I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, he's playing with some Royale at centre back.
Oh,
and sometimes that can cause a
We're going to have to do it the whole season about him.
Because his positioning sometimes with Royale, and nothing against him when he's playing centre back, doesn't give the most advertising runs. Where you saw with Archie Gray and Skip, they were doing it. And I thought, actually, to be fair to him, Ashley Phillips was mostly in the right position as well today. So it was always when Gunter was going out to his right.
Please let's not compare people to Emerson. I promise you, I had a better game than Emerson Royale.
But this is where I think
6 o'clock this morning.
I must have picked up one point because Jace, you were shaking your head there when we were about the goalkeeper chat. I think Marlon or TJ would have brought up the fact: are we comfortable with the two behind Vicario? Or it might have been around the Forster question. My apologies. I think someone's asking, could they displace Forster as number 2?
I'm not convinced of Forster. I was impressed by both goalkeepers today. Could they?
What do you think?
Him as the number 2.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jason?
What do you think, Jason? Or do you think we actually need a genuine alternative to Vicario? If he, for example, what I'm trying to say to you, Vicario went down in pre-season and we had him missing for 3 months, how much would that rock you as a fan to not have him there and have those as backups?
No, I absolutely think you have to go and get a genuine number 2 that can do it. I think with Brandon Austin, you're talking about a bloke that's he's getting into his mid-20s. He's been at Tottenham all his life. He's got nowhere near a first-team start, even against Rochdale in an FA Cup tie, or Newport in an FA Cup tie, or Gillingham in a Carabao Cup tie or something. Nowhere near.
Do you play Forster in that game, Jason, or do you just play Vicario?
And I think the fact that Austin's got a contract now till 2029, I think tells you, or I think all they're actually saying is, look, we need a club homegrown player for Europe. Can you effectively write off the rest of your career to be a Tottenham third choice goalkeeper, so we have a club homegrown spot filled rather than going away? I think Whiteman they'd let go. I think Gunter, of the two, he captains some of that under 21 side or the academy side to their title. So I think that in long term, I think Gunter is the one that will come forward. And I think the fact he looked to play the ball more with his feet. Yeah, he made a couple of mistakes. Goalkeepers do. I mean, Hugo was a disaster with his feet, wasn't he? But I think, you're also, it's experimental size and things like that. But I think the principle is that Gunter, I hope, will eventually become at that level. But he's certainly not there yet. But it's something that I've talked about for years that Tottenham frustrate me, that since Ian Walker, we haven't produced one homegrown goalkeeper since Ian Walker.
And
we're not talking about Ian Walker being a fantastic goalkeeper, but at least he got to a Premier League level. But the rest of them that we've produced, we've seen players maybe in the Championship or League One that have gone on, like Jordan Archers and things like that. But we've got nowhere near producing a Premier League goalkeeper since Ian Walker. So that's a lot, and that's a hell of a lot of goalkeeper coaches and different managers and different styles of play and everything, but got nowhere near it. I think, no, Fraser Foster for me, we saw him doing that. We saw him going down like a sandbag, didn't we, at Fulham in the penalty shootout? So,
please don't.
No, I don't want to see Fraser Foster for 3 months of the season. I think Tottenham do have to go and find a goalkeeper that's 25, 26. I think also with a goalkeeper, you need that real bit of personality. Vicario's got personality, hasn't he?
Yes, yeah, but certainly.
There's a certain feeling to him, and I think when a striker's through 1-on-1, you want to have that personality and be that kind of figure where the striker thinks, Jesus, I've got to get it past him yet. Whereas, or unless you're Timo Werner going through 1-on-1, in which case probably a mannequin is enough to put you off. But you know what I mean. I want a genuine number 2 goalkeeper. I mean, Aaron Ramsdale is now at Arsenal as a number 2 goalkeeper. There's a world of difference between an Aaron Ramsdale and a Fraser Foster. That's for sure.
Yeah, there is. Like I say, look, I think we've touched upon the Timo Werner debate. It's not worth doing it to death. He's going to be here whether we like it or not for another 12 months, and we've got to suck it up and get on with it. I mean, look, again, what I would say is in the previous game, I've got to try and provide some fair balance on this show. He was at the heart of providing the assist for a goal, which, to be fair, Jace, we've had this conversation before. Spurs almost like they want to try and score this same goal that they've been practicing on for the last 12 months under Ange. And to be fair, whether people like it or not, Werner is really integral to the way Ange wants that goal to be scored. It's getting down to the byline, putting like an L-shaped ball into the box, and someone there for a tap-in. In the last game, of course, it was Jed Spence. And whether we like it or not, Timo Werner's here for the next 12 months. And I think as all Spurs fans, we're going to get behind him. Whether we are going to be frustrated or not, he's a Spurs player. He's wearing our shirt, and let's see what is going to happen. But at the end of the day, look, these are, of course, pre-season where you want your players to be up to speed. So when that does happen in the Premier League, he's going to tuck it away. I think what we all feel at the moment is that if he's running through 1-on-1, you wouldn't put your house on it. You probably wouldn't put your bungalow on it. I don't know how far you want to go in terms of properties on that ladder, but you wouldn't put a lot on it at the moment. Maybe not your garden shed. But look, I say, the half really would probably...
I also hope we don't have a penalty shootout, because I'm not putting my house on him in a penalty shootout either.
Well, maybe, let's get the penalty shootout out of the way against Bayern.
Maybe he can go in goal and Fraser Foster can take the penalty. Maybe that's a better way around it.
Let's do that. That'll keep everybody happy. That'll go down well in the cup, wouldn't it? I mean, that would be the most unbelievable turn of events in the Carabao Cup. We win it on penalties. Timo Werner's got in goal and Fraser Forster's got a winning penalty. Look, before we do go for our first break, that half did belong to Bissouma. Just very quickly, look, for Bissouma, that was his first goal since the 30th of April 2022 in Brighton's 3-0 victory away to Wolves, ending your drought in some kind of style. I know Jason will kill me for saying that, because, again, are we really counting this as a competitive game? I don't think we can. But look, I think as the overall half of Bissouma, he looked fairly strong on the ball. He looked fairly commanding, as the guys have touched upon. Did cut over an effort in the 16-minute mark, but look, he made no mistake with the goal. It was a bit of beauty from Bissouma. And as TJ has also eloquently put up and made it clear on his show, Dejan Kulusevski at the heart of that. I love the assist for him in that new role. And just to give you an idea of Bissouma's half numbers in terms of how he performed, the 1 goal, 24 passes out of 25 completed, 3 out of 3 in terms of successful dribbles, 3 passes into the final third, 1 accurate long ball, 1 interception, 2 ball recoveries, 4 duels, 1 out of 5, and 1 foul on his back that he got for, again, providing, like I say, a illustrious run that ended up him going brought down at the time. So look, I think on that basis, a fairly decent half. We know Spurs had made 10 changes. What we are going to do very quickly, before we do go for the first break of the show, as we've touched upon, Archie Gray, as I think has been mentioned on this show again, now a fairly solid display from him. 18 years old, remember. Plenty more that you feel is going to come his way during this pre-season. Skippy making a fairly couple of important interceptions to begin with, battled away. I think it's important to make that point. You know, you've got Gray and Skip there that are playing as centre halves, makeshift centre halves. It's not their natural position. And therefore, I think for the moment, which I know many are thinking why they play in there, we know without Radu Dragusin, we know about Christian Romero, we're without, of course, Mickey van der Ven as well. So it is just about, I think, at the moment, giving players minutes in the legs before we do have bigger battles to come, Jace, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ben Davies hasn't been ready, so I think they said he'll go on the tour. They fly out, I think, Monday on tour. So, but yeah, and it's more, they're playing out of position, but you need somebody to play there in pre-season. And it's also, if they play in their own positions, they may not get any minutes in their legs. So you might as well get minutes in the legs at least, for sure.
Yep. Also, interestingly, Jamie Donnelly, I think, again, a fairly bright display from him in that 45 minutes. Made a couple of really important tackles. Many might pick up on the fact that he lost out on one in the 19th minute. But another player worth mentioning is Pat Matassar, back from injury. Made that one early run in terms of the midfield hustle at the time. Again, I would describe him as a bit of a busy presence in midfield, got things moving. And again, a player that you feel as pre-season goes on, he'll need more game time. He'll be right in there amongst Ange's favourable options, as we saw last season. Brennan Johnson, I think it's fair to say it wasn't his best half in a Spurs shirt, a couple of wasted opportunities. But again, I think a player that has got some real decent high hope in this preseason. And many expect him to have a real explosive second season in the Spurs shirt. Sonny.
He also put 2 on a plate for Sonny that Sonny missed.
Well, I just about to come on to Sonny. Yeah, I mean, do you know what? You look at Sonny's opportunities today. Now, he's playing in the centre of attack again, which I think we've all admitting here on this stat, Marlon, that it's obviously not his favoured role. We've touched upon the fact he would probably want to be playing out on the left or out on the right. But is that going to work against us if we don't sign a centre forward that we're playing Sonny out of position when it comes to the start of the season? Or is Sonny that good where, again, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference? He'll adapt. He'll change. Because that's what Sonny is as a player. He'll easily revert if need be, and he'll sacrifice himself to the team like he has done in the 7-8 seasons that he's been at Tottenham.
No, I'd probably agree that he'll sacrifice himself and he'll be good up top. He will do a job, and when it comes to the season starting, Sonny puts those chances away. I think he's still, after the Man City miss, he's still trying to recover from that. But what he will do when the season starts is, Sonny will turn up, he'll put it in the back of the net. I think he's goals and assists last season when he played up top was so much better than when he played on the left. So I'm not expecting anything different from Sonny, but it will be a real shame if Sonny does have to play up top next season, because it just shows you that we haven't gone out and bought the striker that is going to be needed for this season. Because there's rumours that Richarlison's now, might head off to Saudi, or but he's not consistent with injuries either. He gets injured at the wrong time. So we can't be having a season unless it's like really major where Sonny's up top. Sonny needs to be on that left, because if he's not on that left, we are relying on Werner and Solomon, who a lot today people have gone, not on the left. They're not being convincing, and that's what we need to do. So look, at the end of the day, Sonny is Sonny. I trust him, but he can't play as many games as he did last year as well, because it will come back and eat us in the second half of the season.
I can understand Jason's ears.
Oh, did you hear that?
Jason's picked up there. We've now lost Marlon out to we've just lost Marlon to a flake 99. He's going to have to go early. I'm so sorry. This is what we are going to do. Our listeners and audio will believe this. We'll go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. We'll let Marlon go and get himself a flake 99. Our YouTube audience will never know. They won't. We've got over 3,500 of you watching us live. As always, thank you so much for your incredible support for the show. Back alongside me for pre-season. One of my last games of pre-season, I'm off to Cyprus, as you guys know, in a couple of weeks. Jason's on the hard, soft slog shift to come. That's a tongue twister, right, Jace? He'll be with us, Jace, will you? Covering this for us?
I'm on the Vissel Kobe 11, yeah, for sure.
And can I just say on the Vissel Kobe 11, I voiced out to TJ and said, TJ, I can't put you through wake up at 5 a.m. for Vissel Kobe. So TJ has got that off and is joining us for Bayern Munich. So
Thank
you
goodness.
can tell I've upgraded.
I've never felt like such a fundamental part of this show until I was allowed to take that game off. I've obviously banked some credit. I was delighted to hear that.
We'll get you back, TJ, when it comes to the Europa League and what's to come in that competition. You don't know what's going to hit you when that comes along. And Marlon, again, we're featuring heavily, of course, on this last one on Spurs across the summer. Busy shows to come. As always, thank you so much, guys, for all your incredible support for the show. And what I will just bring into focus now, just before we went for that break, is interestingly, we saw Ange have a laugh and joke with Bissouma just to remind him, look, Biss, it was only pre-season, that goal. Don't get too carried away. Just to bring him back down to earth. Because, again, many will feel, as I said there, first goal, it's been a goal drought for a number of years for Bissouma. But I thought Jason was going to shout me down there and say, you can't count that one, Rick. Surely you can't count that one. It's pre-season. We're not going to count it. We're not going to count it. We're not. We'll come to the second half because Spurs made 10 changes to that side. Obviously, Spurs lining up with Gunter, Spence, Emerson, Phillips, Abbott, Maddison, Devine, Kulusevski, Moore, Lancashire, Solomon, that second half starting 11. Now, an early chance for Lancashire as Maddison played the ball through and the 19-year-old touched it round the keeper, but it was just heading wide. So that effort rolled into the side netting. But again, another player that, to be fair, to date, I'll say to date because, again, pre-season is, again, a fairly long process. Again, it's a period where players will turn up. As we said in the last game, Brennan Johnson got his goal, had a fairly more quiet second game for him pre-season. But Jed Spence at the moment is the one you'd say at the pinnacle, really, in terms of pre-season, that is really bringing the game into focus for him. TJ, I'll come to you, then I'll go to Marlon, because, again...
I was going to say, that was excellent, Marlon. Thanks for that ice cream, mate. Wonderful.
Transmitting through the screen like a pro, but that was brilliant. And look, just enough time to get that in. TJ, I will ask you about Jed Spence, and I'll come on to Marlon, because Started the second half fairly brightly, take up dangerous positions in central areas, receive the ball under pressure, a brilliant turn to get himself away from Anderson before poking the ball into Mikey's Moore path. We've said this before with Spence in the last show. The talent is all there.
Yes.
And you know what? It looks like a player that is, I think, chomping at the bit for a second opportunity. Is that how you see it? Or again, is it too early to make those assumptions?
No, I think now is the time to make those assumptions. And also, you know, here is a young man who was much maligned in the press by a lot of the supporters, and it's tough. You know, it's tough on a lot of these young lads to turn around such a negative perception. And the only way that you can really do that is when you are given an opportunity on the pitch. You go and you do everything that you possibly can to prove the naysayers wrong and to prove those who are in support of you. I've always really rated Jed Spence. I mean, he tore us apart when he was at Middlesbrough. And again, we have Emerson Royal, you know, still on the books as a right back at Tottenham Hotspur. And so for somebody like Jed to come in and really prove that he wants it, he wants to make this work, I think you got to take your hat off to the young man. He looks physical and he looks tricky. You know, there was that point that he was stuck in the corner and he nutmegged a player and got past him. I mean, the guy dragged him down, and I think we ended up getting a free kick or a corner or, you know, whatever.
That's
it
right,
was.
yeah.
But, you know, he's a real handful, and his recovery pace. Remember, Jason, when we were talking about how that lad, I don't know his name, sadly, the QPR lad who just blitzed his way past Bissouma. Well, I think it was maybe the same kid who'd broken through to the box, made like a 30-yard run into the box.
Smith shot, Smith.
Right, and
or might have been
Jed Spence just went. It was like, you know, it was like vintage Kyle Walker. I was, you know, wiping tears away. Like, that was such a wonderful thing to see. A player absolutely busting a gut and making up 30 or 40 yards within a second. And then combined with Emerson Royal to snuff out that opportunity. So I think that he's a player who is very much knocking on the manager's door and is also saying to the fan base, listen, man, believe in me because I am that guy. And so I was delighted with his performance today.
Yeah, I will ask you about him, CJ, Marlon. Before I do, Emerson Royal, just again for fair balance, I try and bring some fair balance to this show. He was quickly across the slide into block Michael Frey's strike just inside the Tottenham box. Don't say I don't try and give credit to everybody on this show. I try and do. Just going back to
bloody good effort to give Emerson Royal credit.
I found something.
I'm impressed that he manages to put his shirt on the right way around. I mean, you know, unbelievable.
Listen, we've got a montage cut. We have a tribute show. I won't book you for that one, CJ. We'll leave you off that one, mate, when that comes around.
I'll be away that day.
Yeah. Be away for the week. Marlon, I want to ask you about Jed Spence. Look, he continues to be in this kind of fine form, and you know, Jace and CJ having that interchange there, that lightning speed he's shown, the quick footwork to get him away from two QPR defenders to force a corner, that very slick nutmeg on Paul Smith when it looked like Spence was getting trapped by the corner flag. You know, he really is making an impression so far pre-season. Again, I don't want to get carried away. I do want to keep my feet on the ground to some degree. Look, it's 45 minutes over the course now of 2 games. It's 90 in total. Where are we on Jed Spence? Is this now a serious conversation, or do we still need to see more?
No. And I think Jason on the last show said it very well. There was nothing. We never, ever questioned Spence's ability. It was more him being a professional footballer and being professional in what he wants to do. And if he is seen, look, I think the loan deal in Italy might have woken up a little bit and gone, you know what, I can do this. But it's the fact that he's come back into this Ange system and he's very, very similar to the way Udogie plays in it. And I think that's what is key to this, is actually he fits very well going forward in this system. And actually, the question mark was going to be after the Hearts game, how can he deal with it defensively? But as we saw today, actually, he can deal with it defensively. It's now just up to him. It's actually not up to anyone else apart from Jed Spence right now, because at the end of the day, Porro is not. Look, if we can give Porro a rest in certain games and bring Jed in, actually the like and like replacement is we're actually going to get 2 good players at right back. We can't have Emerson Royal at right back. Centre back is the best we're going to get out of Emerson Royal. And to be fair to Royal today, I did kind of question him when he's positioning when he for Gunter. He actually defensively played really well for Spence and actually made a few good tackles. But with Spence right now, it's up to Spence. No one else. Not even up to Ange. Spence he's got to realise either he wants to play for this football club or he doesn't, right? And I think even what's his name, Warnock, said the same thing. It was never about his ability; it's about his professionalism. And as long as he can sit there and go, actually, I want to play for Tottenham. I want to play in the Premier League, and I want to actually aim for Champions League football because that's the aim of the football club. That's the next level. That's up to Jed Spence, no one else. And I think realistically, what we've seen in the last couple of games, I think, will get us excited because we've been watching Emerson for the last how many years, right? Yeah. And we haven't probably seen a decent right back like this, going forward, and the way he could get some of his recovery runs is that Kyle Walker when he first started. That is what Kyle Walker used to do. Right?
He's now 23 as well. I just had a quick look. Yeah. He's coming into that time now in his career where I think he probably possesses the mental maturity. Because you're absolutely right, Marlon. It is down to him. Yeah. However, one must possess the mental acumen to be able to not only acknowledge that perspective that really my future lies in my own hands, but then have the bravery, the courage, and the fortitude to grab it. And that's why I was so pleased to see him today really trying to make a point, not only to the fans, to the coaching staff, but also to himself. I like him very much, man. I think he's an exciting player. And the shades of Kyle Walker are, warm the cockles of my heart.
Yeah, and you can kind of see where, the players will be on social media. So the kind of thing where Spurs,
he'll be well aware.
Spurs fans, and Spurs fans are starting to speak positive about him in the last two games. And I know we're not getting carried away, but we're seeing something going. Actually, we can see that sort of style and that sort of play in the Premier League and working. Right, and that's the thing at the moment. You can see it when he's being that inverted fullback. Some of the positions he's taking up in it, and I think Ange can see it as well. And that's why he probably will take a slightly longer look at him, right, to see actually if this can be the guy. Because it will probably be that Porro plays in the league games and Spence will play in the Europa League and Cup games, and actually the drop off won't be major because you can see. His pass that he laid to Lancashire against Hearts the other day. There was a couple today that he, going forward. Brilliant. It's just going to be whether his concentration on what he's going to be like defensively. But again, we're going to have most of the ball. That's the way Ange wants to play. But again, I'm always going to reiterate this. It's all down to Spence. It is down to Spence. It's not down to us.
He's got 3 levels to go to. His first level is to genuinely win a place at Tottenham, which he obviously hasn't done in 2 years. Then his second level, which is almost the more important one, is if he does get that place, is to then stay there. And not think, all right, I'm in there, I've made it, and immediately fall back into his old ways. And then his third goal is there's a World Cup in 2 years. Kyle Walker is at an age where he should be thinking, do you know what? Knuckle down. England will have a new manager. Knuckle down. Show my professionalism. Show I can perform. Push Porro. Be a proper player at Tottenham. And then in 2 years' time, there's a World Cup because he's played enough underage football with England that you should, when you've played under 21 football, think, where's my England debut coming from? And that should be his third level to push for.
Great incentive. I hope there's someone in his camp, Jason, or maybe he watches even just that soundbite. Those are 3 very, very attainable goals. And I think, again, for these young men, setting yourself a very real, a very visual target. That's such an insightful point, man. Like, stake your claim at the club, keep your place at the club, and then push to become England's right back in 2 years. Well said, man. I take my hat off to you.
Should do.
They're watching. Don't worry, they'll be watching. I say it so confidently. Listen, of course they're watching. All do around the table then on this very quickly. Jed Spence at the moment with 2 games into pre-season, 45 minutes on each occasion. Jace, will he be a Spurs player when the window ends?
If he turns up for training at 9 o'clock every morning. Okay. It's not on the pitch, mate. It's not on the pitch. He hasn't got to impress me on the pitch.
What do you reckon, CJ? What do you take
away?
When
there's a team meeting, does he turn up for a team meeting and things like that? They're the bits we don't know what's going on.
I agree. However, I think there is an equilibrium between how a player is performing on the pitch. And again, his physical attributes and his technical ability were never in question. It's making that gut busting 30, 40 yard recovery. That's a mental thing that you choose to do that Biss chose not to do.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the kind of attitude that will translate to him hitting that alarm clock at whenever it is at 7:30 and getting himself in the car and going down and making it to training at 9 o'clock. So I would say yes.
Interesting. 2 yeses. Marlon, what do you reckon?
As long as he's on the plane, then yes. Because last year it was completely different. I think Ange was set up straight away where Ange was like, "You were late. That's it. I'm done." And going with it. So as long as he's on that plane, then yeah, we're good. Yeah, I think he will be. I think he's shown enough in 2 games already that he's good enough to be here.
I think, again, what's always interesting, I think I find it absolutely fascinating that a player can have an absolute no looking for 12 months. Again, for the reasons that I think we all knew at the time, can come back and can show you something in training. And that's what it's all about. This is why I find football so fascinating. You can be out of the picture for such a long time. And then in the space of 3-4 weeks of pre-season, if you can show that ability, as Jason's touched on, to knuckle down, to turn up on time, you can change everything. Again, you look at it, Jed's got it all at his feet. He's got an opportunity with a New England manager there, as Jason's touched upon, a position of a player that is going to be coming towards the end of his reign in England where it's all for Jed, isn't it? It's all there set up for him. So again, there was real, I don't just say this, I think there was real genuine excitement when we signed Spence. If you guys remember at the time, we felt like we were getting a player that could be the next Spurs right back for the next 5-10 years. I don't want to exaggerate, but it felt like that. Again, I think Lee, bless him, Lee's first show of us was Kyle Walker actually leaving the club. And Lee said to me, I don't think we'll ever replace Kyle. And to be fair to Lee, look, all these years later, you'd say maybe we've just about getting there with Pedro Porro. We're just about getting there with him. So to have the opportunity of having Porro and Spence, which would give us real confidence going into a season when we've got Europa League, hopefully the cup competitions to take fairly seriously, and a decent league ahead of us in terms of a run we want to go on, that will leave Spurs in a much, much stronger place. Another player I want to talk about is Mikey Moore. Actually, interestingly, because Spence was linking up with Mikey Moore down one of the flanks, and the Spurs fans are really, really getting behind both Spence and Mikey Moore. Some really lovely pictures I saw with the fans there during the games with those two respective players. And he was so close, Marlon, to his second senior Spurs goal. Dejan Kulusevski again playing that lovely role as we saw, providing the ball to Mikey Moore. His shot was too close to the host goalkeeper who simply stopped it. But again, good movement from the 16-year-old. I find when I'm saying Spurs are 16, I feel like I'm aging so quick now. Don't you guys find it? When you're watching players this young, I'm thinking, where are we going? Honestly, where are we going? But do you know what I like about Moore? Again, I've only seen a cameo of him, but he looks really fearless in attack. And I think that's what you get with young players like that. They are fearless. They want to express themselves. He bit a couple of QPR defenders, then on the break, without a doubt, has all the talent in the world, especially one-on-one. What do you think for you, Marlon? We're going to see more game time for him, Mikey Moore, between now and the end of pre-season?
Possibly because of the numbers we have at the moment. My question will be, do I think we'll see Mikey Moore throughout the season? I don't think we'll see much of him. I think his age will come into it. And I think he's in a position right now. It just depends on basically, it's the position that we're all screaming for, is that front three to be improved this summer. And I just don't think we'll see much of him once the season's. And as the preseason goes on, I think we'll see less of him, unfortunately. But he has shown enough to actually, he's going to be bright for the future. He has shown, everything he has done in these last 2 games is nothing but positive. I literally can't say a bad word about him. And the fact he's only 16 is just incredible. It's so incredible. But I just want to touch on one thing as well. The one player that no one's really talking about, and I just want to see more of him as the preseason goes on, is Alfie Devine. I thought he played really well and really comfortable today. That he didn't stand out, but he didn't do anything that was going concerning. And I think for me, I think Devine's probably going to get more and more minutes and over time over the next few weeks to see actually what's he going to be like. Because I thought he has been he's been very good in the last 2 games, but quietly doing it. So between him and Mikey Moore, I think we'll see Mikey Moore for me, brilliant, and Alfie Devine has just been slowly just slotting in and showing more than in his game than what Skip has been doing. And that's just my opinion at the moment on that one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to come on to Devine in a second. Jason, I can maybe ask you as a 2-parter on that one. Maybe on Mikey Moore, like Marlon said there. I mean, again, okay today. Again, 16 years old. I mean, you are going to get, as we've said before when you're off air, you are going to get players that are going to have dips and peaks and troughs. He's 16 years old. You're not going to get that consistency yet. I wonder how much more you think we're going to see of him in pre-season when you're seeing towards the end. And on that point, Mikey, more a two-parter here. Alfie Devine has come back into a team where he's got Bergvall in there centrally. You know, we've got Sarr in there. You've got Bissouma in there. Bentancur still around as things stand. You know, it's a lot of midfield options. Archie Gray as well. I mean, how do you see that playing out in terms of game time for those both respective players, Jace?
Well, I think you'll certainly see them in Asia because some of those players still won't be back. So they will play possibly minutes in the first game against Bayern, but whether they'll feature much against Bayern at Tottenham, you know, a week before the season. But I think Mikey Moore we will see more of as the season goes on because as I say, the club homegrown thing is an issue. So 4 have got to be involved in Europe, and the fact that he can't go out on loan actually puts him at an advantage from perhaps an Alfie Devine or something that they would look at and think, give me 30 championship games, which they can't do with Mikey Moore. So, but whether we'll see Mikey Moore get meaningful minutes, like I say, there's a difference between coming on when you're 3-0 up in a game with 2 minutes to go than when you come on with 30 minutes to go in a 0-0 game, whether there'll be meaningful minutes. Because, you know, that as you start to see him play senior football, he comes up against people that are quite happy to kick lumps out of him and use their experience and things like that. So it definitely at each stage you go up, the tougher it is to make that impression. But certainly I think he will be. I think he will be involved more, and then it's up to him to make the most of 5 minutes to get a 15 minutes, and then enough of those 15 minutes to get a 25 minutes. So the challenge is there, but I think the opportunity for him is bigger because of that advantage that he can't go out on loan.
Yeah, again, that's a point I know you've really hammered home in the last few weeks. I think people do need to bear that in mind. Again, not having an option of a loan will, I think, change a lot of the thinking with regards to the player and how those minutes are progressed in these next few weeks. If I can ask you, if you don't mind, TJ, about Alfie Devine, Marlon brought him up. A player that, again, I think many would say it was a fairly bright cameo today. But, you know, again, I wonder what the player is feeling. You know, he's gone away in terms of this summer, or say this season. He's obviously been out on loan. He's come back. He's seen arguably 2 players now come into his position in terms of Archie Gray and you'd say Lucas Bergvall. You might argue again, depending on what you want to call them, 6s, 8s, 10s, in terms of how they're going to be progressed in the pitch, that it might be different players for different positions. But ultimately, they are midfielders that are brought in a similar position to Alfie, whether it's central attacking. You can only really play 1 or 2 of them in a game in the way Spurs want to set up. Do you think he's feeling that his career is still at Spurs, or is there still now that he needs to knuckle down this pre-season and prove himself to Ange? Because I think there would be a feeling of the player that he's going to have to give absolutely everything now to show he's got a career at Spurs. When you look at the other options now Spurs have got, I mentioned it before, you've got Sarr in there, you've got Bentancur to come back. You know, it's a huge array of midfield options there before you even go down the pecking order to, of course, Alfie Devine.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he still feels that his career is at Tottenham, because I agree with Marlon. Like when he brought him up, I was hoping that we're going to talk about Alfie Devine as well. And it's so interesting that you said he outperformed Skip. He already looks like a better player than Ollie Skip. It's very difficult to judge a pre-season friendly, especially against championship opposition. Obviously, Ollie Skip played a great number of Premier League games against elite competition, but he just looks like such a competent player, so confident on the ball. He seems to have 2 feet, can play a first-time pass, which is very, very important. Like I was saying to Jason before, that I hope that there's somebody in Jed Spence's camp who gives him those 3 goals that he should aim for. I hope somebody in Alfie Devine's camp is reminding him that, remember, Ange Postecoglou likes players that can play in several positions. So if you're a utility player, even if you're looking at somebody who's been brought in like Bergvall, who does look like an excellent technical, confident player, you might not be playing in that same position, or you might be playing in that position because Ange will move Bergvall somewhere else, or will move whoever else that's been brought into the club. You know, you need to be able to play an array of positions, and he looks technically sound enough. He also looks physical enough. Looks like a bit of a lump for such a young man. He looks physical enough to be able to handle the rigors of the Premier League. And, again, We're going to be playing in 4 different competitions this season. And so those opportunities will arise. Will he get meaningful minutes? Again, to Jason's point, I hope so, because he looks like a very, very promising player. And if we can keep this nucleus of young players at Tottenham who've been so successful together, I think that only bodes well for the future. And it also speaks to a larger culture of the club. I want to be seen as a club where young players feel that they will have opportunities to not only develop, but also to break through to the first team. I think that would be a culture that the club should be looking at as a short-term fix, but also a long-term fix, that young players at Tottenham Hotspur will have opportunities to play first-team football at the very highest level.
Yeah, that's
I think
fair points on that.
One key thing for me with Alfie Devine was he had a really good loan at Port Vale. The one then that stepped up a level to Plymouth didn't go perhaps as well as he went, but there was one moment at Port Vale which I think says a lot about him. Was Port Vale got a last-minute penalty, and you're talking about a kid of 18 that's on loan at your football club, where there are senior players in that football club, whichever the level it is. There's people that have been playing at that level. Yeah. He's not a striker. It's Alfie Devine that took that last-minute penalty. That
That's
actually tells you a lot about what people at Port Vale thought. They thought he's got the maturity, he's got the mentality to be able to handle, because that was points on the board. You know, that's not to impress a scout. That's genuine points that need to be put on the board for a team that's playing in professional football. So the fact that they let him do that, the fact that he wanted to do it, and the fact he tucked it in the corner should actually tell you a lot about his mentality and how other players relate to him.
It's a great point.
Yeah, I think that's hopefully again for the kid, he's going to get some decent game time between now and the rest of pre-season. Again, they've got to make judgments for these players. You know, at the end of the day, that is what a squad is for, to have options and balance. And I want to ask you, James, if I can, about James Maddison very quickly. James, again, I think it's fair to say, looks fairly decent as what he could do in terms of, you know, the time he got out there. Again, it's only 45 minutes. So I have to make this point, you know, for 45 minutes, you're not going to get all singing, dancing, songs, bells and whistles, right? You're going to get players that are just feeding their way back into game time. But I think, look, you look pretty sharp, Jace. I mean, you said it on the last show. It's a big preseason for him. You think he'll be really ready, don't you? I know you said this to us on the last show. You think what's to come, Leicester away to begin with his old club, and again, a New England manager, similar to Jed, it's all there for him, right?
Absolutely. You know, it's the perfect start to the season. Leicester away with a New England manager live on TV. You know, that's he could not have picked a better fixture for me. And I think he will be ready. I mean, it's difficult to know. It's 45 minutes. It's early days at the moment, but I do expect him to have that. The key for James Maddison is not just to have the good August, is it? It's to keep that going and then keep his fitness going, not keep picking up silly injuries or not silly. You can't help but get injuries, but you know, to try and avoid some of those injuries that he gets. But yeah, I definitely think James Maddison's hitting the ground ready, and that first month, I think you'll see the James Maddison we all want to see.
And I want to ask you, Marlon, if I can, about Manor Solomon. 45 minutes under his belt, another 45 minutes for him. Maybe show glimpses about what he can do, what he can't do. I know TJ's not impressed at all. Where do you think his future lies, Marlon? Do you think he'll be a Spurs player come the end of the window?
Probably not. He's had literally a year out with an injury. I know. Look, the only game we can really go back to and go, there was impressive. We saw impressive things against Burnley when he did play last year, but the last 2 friendlies have shown that actually we may have moved on as a team since he came in then, and that's probably where we're at with him. And unfortunately, it's going to take him some time to get back onto running up to the speed of things as well. Have Spurs got the time to warrant him doing that as well? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves. And probably not. He probably needs to go somewhere, get some minutes, get back up to speed, and see if he can make it in the Premier League or another big club in Europe. You know, maybe we might have to send him back on loan to somewhere for another Europa League team, so he can just literally get out and start playing football again. But at the moment at Spurs, it's not going to happen. He's not going to walk into our first team. He's probably going to be here, there, and everywhere. And the problem is he needs minutes. It's being out of football for a year is a long time to try and come back and then try and get up to speed. It's, you know, and that's the way it is at the moment.
Is that the general consensus, guys? You're nodding there, Jason.
We're talking about, you know, you can see him becoming third choice, can't you? You can see him becoming the substitute that comes on for even in Europa League games. And that's what I mean about a pathway. I'd sooner give his minutes to Mikey Moore than have Manor Solomon coming on for 20 minutes in a Europa game.
I think that's fair. I mean, are you on the same wavelength, TJ? Do you think it's unlikely he'll be here at the start of the season? Because again, you got to say, if he goes on the plane and he's getting minutes, that situation's looking fairly more unlikely he will leave the club, because you'd imagine if he's going to be on the plane next week, he's seen as an integral part of the squad. Otherwise, why take him on the plane? Are you with me, TJ, on that?
Most definitely. I think he's a player that flatters to deceive. I think because he's so energetic and his movement seems so sort of frenetic and electric that he looks quite dynamic. But there's no product. You're not really doing anything. You're like a dynamo that's whizzing around, and I'm looking at the light bulb and it's kind of flickering on and off. I would be amazed if he is on the plane. I would be really disappointed if he's on the plane because of the points that Marlon and Jason have made. You know, those minutes are so precious.
Yep.
And so give them to somebody else, give them to someone that we do feel has a future or has the potential for future. Let him go and play somewhere else. You know, is he a Premier League player? Maybe he, goes to one of the teams that have just come up or something like that. Or to Marlon's point, he goes and plays somewhere else in Europe. He does need to get some minutes. He's been sitting on his arse for a year. That's very, very difficult. But, we're not a charity. There's only so many positions on the pitch and there's only so many minutes that can be played. And so if we wasted them on a player that just doesn't look like he's ever going to kind of come good at Tottenham, I'd rather just let him go and let him enjoy his career somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, Jace, if I come around to you, Spurs did make a couple of changes. We had Overlees and Tyrese Hall replace Will Lancashire and Dejan Kulusevski. I wonder what you think about Lancashire from what you've seen with Jace. I mean, many were excited about that Kane-esque finish that we got against Hearts. Again, another promising cameo. You feel he's unlucky not to score. Obviously, put his effort wide into the side netting. Have you seen enough from Will Lancashire to show you that he could be around for this upcoming season, or do you think a low would benefit him given his stage in development for you, Jace?
I think in an ideal world, you want youngsters to be playing regularly. Whether he stays around, I mean, at the moment he doesn't get classed as club homegrown. So because to attain club homegrown status, you must have done 3 years at that club before your 21st birthday. So he still doesn't get club homegrown status, but the club may well think we need him to do that so that in a year or 2 years' time he does become a club homegrown player. So I think it will be the club making that decision. Is he better to go on loan, or are we better to keep him to try and get him to become one of those? I think Scarlett, there's Donnelly, Scarlett, Will Lancashire. One you're probably going to end, and of course we had Troy Parrott, who's now gone. So they won't all stay around the club and they won't all go out on loan. It's a question of maybe it will depend on which offers come up for which one that the club kind of decide on, rather than sitting here thinking he definitely goes, he definitely stays, he's the one that we're definitely pinning our mast on. I think, if a Premier League came in for, say, if one of the promoted clubs came in and gave Dane Scarlett an opportunity to go there on loan, I think the club would say, yeah, let him go and do that. It's Premier League football. But if a League One team came in and do it, they think not worth it. So I think it depends on what offers and things like that come up.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Again, we'll see what minutes he does get. In terms of other youngsters at the moment, Ashley Phillips, again, had plenty to do with in terms of the QPR forward line, you'd say. Again, he was dealt with most of it as a whole. Again, you're looking at a player that does probably, again, need a certain calibre of game time to be able to understand how good his level can be. So, again, it'll be interesting to see how much time he gets between now and, of course, the rest of pre-season. George Abbott, someone to keep an eye on. Of course, George did actually get first 2 minutes under Ryan Mason, if you remember. He did get a debut under Ryan Mason. Again, versatile left-back, 18 years old. And I think when you look at that overall cameo he's given today, he wouldn't have done himself any harm in terms of this upcoming tour and going on it. So I think it'll be really interesting to see who does make that tour and who doesn't make the tour. And I will just very quickly mention, we talked about goalkeepers earlier, Luca Gunter, again, another goalkeeper that made a superb save in the pushing of a header onto the post before Spurs' second goal. And that's quite unique with Tottenham. And it's typical classic Spurs, really, because when you look at the way the game panned out, and I'll come on to Emerson before we close, QPR hit the post from a corner. And less than 60 seconds later, Spurs break up the pitch and Scarlett's putting the ball into the net. I mean, if that's not Spurs in a definition of Spurs, what is Spurs, right? I mean, that is Tottenham.
They didn't hit the post. He saved it, didn't he?
From what I understand, I think he pushed it onto the post. pushed it onto the post.
All right, okay. I was going to say it was definitely his save than we broke
Yeah.
downfield. Right,
But
okay.
I just thought if you could ever get a moment that is so definitive for Tottenham, one end you're looking to concede, the other end you're going up to score. I mean, if there's no much more of a Spurs moment or what Spurs are as a club, that's it. And to be fair, look, it was a great finish from Dane. We touched on the last show, Marlon, actually, I'll go to TJ first, then come to Marlon. TJ, he's bogged out quite a bit now, Dane Scarlett. He looks like a really, I'd say, a player that looks like he's getting ready for the Premier League. Maybe not for Tottenham, but looks like he's getting ready for the Premier League. I mean, at some point, there's got to be a decision taken there, hasn't he? You can't keep just loaning players out. I mean, he's been on this kind of merry-go-round for the last 2-3 seasons. I mean, don't forget, I think Mourinho was very complimentary of him in terms of what he could go on to achieve. Haven't seen it yet in a Spurs shirt. What do you think for you?
I mean, I think what Mourinho says about players is Mourinho is always going to say things that are going to get him clicks. For Mourinho, it's more about what are people going to say about me. He's unbelievably conceited man, and since the proliferation of social media, he's just like, this is my medium. Dane Scarlett for me, no, and I hear he looks kind of bigger. To be honest, he looks a bit soft to me. He doesn't look like all muscle to me. And I mean, look, the fact that he got on to that, like you said, that's the goal that Ange wants to score all the time. He managed to get himself onto that, which is good. Towards the end of kind of a dying, pre-season friendly, like if that's a Premier League game, like he's not getting anywhere near that. I don't think. I don't rate Dane Scarlett. I just haven't seen anything over the last kind of 3 or 4 years that has given me like what I saw in Dejan Spence, what I saw in Bergvall, what I saw in Mikey Moore, what I saw in Alfie Devine, what I saw in Will Lancashire. Like, you can really see some real nuggets there. Like, what is it, if someone was a fan of what is it that we like about him? I haven't seen killer speed. I haven't seen great instinct. I haven't seen great movement off the ball. I've not seen great technical ability. I haven't seen him finish like from 25 yards out, like top bins, or, I haven't seen any of that. And he couldn't start at Ipswich. He spent most of his time at Ipswich on the bench. Again, we have to be not only ruthless, potentially, but also we have to be a little bit pragmatic. With Tottenham Hotspur, we're a big Premier League club, one of the biggest clubs in the world, who are vying to win trophies. Players like Dane Scarlett, we talk about a guy who puts the ball in the back of the net. No, he is that kind of fox, like, would he score that and Sonny didn't score? Sonny's not a tap-in kind of, he's not a tap-in striker. Sonny's much better when he has more of the ball. He's on the left and he cuts in and shoots, or he's on the right and he cuts in and shoots, or he just dribbles around 6 players and scores. So for me, Dane Scarlett is a definite no. Good luck to the young man. Let him go and have a career somewhere else. But I would be amazed and very disappointed if it's at Tottenham Hotspur.
Do you share those thoughts, Marlon, for you on Dane Scarlett? Do you think he's nowhere near the level of quality of what Spurs need this upcoming season?
Yeah, I do. I really wanted him to make it as well, because I thought he did show glimpses during parts of certain games. He's shown glimpses, but I just think the problem he's got now, you've got the Lees and you've got Lancashire coming through as well now, and he's getting to an age where we're only keeping him around. Like Jason said, we've got to keep him here to even get homegrown status. I think it's time to cut our losses and actually just let him go have a football career. And whether that's going to be successful or not will soon work out if Mourinho and all the other managers were right about him. But he just probably needs to go somewhere, feel a bit of love, even if that's a division down, and see where he ends up. But I think for Spurs right now, looking at the future, Lancashire and Belize are, let's be honest, they brought Belize in. So they have to play, they have to do something with him. And then there's obviously a lot of thing about Lancashire as well. And you have to don't forget that Jamie Donnelly can play up top as well. So there's another one that could be in the pipeline. So unfortunately, look, Dane Scarlett, I wish it worked out better for him. But I think right now he's getting to a point where he just needs to go play football.
What do you reckon, Jace, for you on that, Dane Scarlett? Are you on the same wavelength as the guys?
Yeah, I think he's potentially the best he's going to be is an Eddie Nketiah type person that's never quite going to hold a place down, but may well score the odd goal here or there that becomes a big goal or something. But you're right. I think that you're at that stage where you've got to got to really start to make a decision, because we're also, I think Lee made the point, you're seeing young players go for big money. You can't keep these young players until it's their last 12 months either. So, because then they're worth nothing, and you've just wasted 2 or 3 years for them. I think we've got to learn from the Japhet Tanganga syndrome of just keeping a player until they become useless to you as a player and useless to you as a selling item. So yeah, maybe it's decision time, but I think he's probably better than the two boys think he is. But with that, you've got to grab the opportunity when it comes.
Yeah, and to be fair to him, he scored a couple of nice goals in pre-season so far. I mean,
Shakhtar
when you look back at
last year, he scored
Shakhtar was a great goal, wasn't it? Great goal.
Mm.
Again, I think we've had that issue where, if you remember, he was part of the squad for. I'm sorry to go back there, Jason. I get traumatized. I can't get the word out. I'm still suffering from it. That Fulham exit in the Carabao Cup. He played that game with Davies and Sanchez, and they both left a couple of days after. It's just things like that. You just wonder, how involved are these guys? But look, I think, like I say, in terms of an overall run out, fairly positive experience. I think, as we've said, there's more challenging games ahead. The likes, of course, of Bayern Munich to come. Maybe lesser Vissel Kobe, but Jason will carry us through with Lee and the gang for that one, which will be fun for you next week. Final question to you all before we close the show. Emerson Royale went down clutching his left ankle. We understand that he looks to be okay. He's back on the move, so that shouldn't disrupt any potential move in these next few weeks. I mean, look, players got to go on the plane. I just wonder, you boys, before we close this show, is there going to be any real genuine surprises about players that will and won't make that plane? Because what you are going to have in this next week or so, you are going to have the players now coming back from the Euros. So that does mean you're going to have the likes of Dragoshin heading back. You're going to have Højbjerg coming back through. I'm trying to think who else you've got out there. I think the Copa America lads have got a bit more extended time, but is there any real genuine surprises, Jace, for you in terms of who won't make that plane, who will make that plane when we obviously get that announced in terms of the departures of when that plane will depart?
I think, I've done a couple of the Asian tours before. As obviously did the one last year, and I can't remember how many we took last year. We took 30 odd players, I think, last year. I mean, people like Davies and Sanchez were out in Thailand last year, but he clearly wasn't going to be part of the squad and things like that. So, and Ndombele was there last year on the tour and such, and he clearly wasn't going to be part of the squad. So I'm not so sure it's an out and out indication. I think it just depends on the availabilities and fitnesses of other people that are around, and perhaps even if, say, I don't know, if I'm pretty certain if Højbjerg is back from pre-season from holiday, I think he goes, but I still think the club will look to sell him. But because there's the part of the element of once you start getting players back, there is the team bonding thing, and you can't dismiss a player completely just in case you do still keep him. So I think Reguilón they kind of want out the door, I think. But I'm not so sure Højbjerg's in that thing where they're just desperate to get him out the door, if you see what I mean. I think they think, like, if we'd like to sell him, but if he's around, he's still around, and he's still of use to the squad in certain scenarios. So I wouldn't look too much into it. There may be. I think Bentancur might be I'm not sure if he's due to be back. He's the one that I'd be a little bit, when you talked about a big name player leaving, I think I'd be surprised if Bentancur's there come September the 1st.
I'm with you on that. Heartbreaking as it is, because I love Benta, but I think he's the one. I agree with you on that one, Jason.
I'm not so sure when he was available last year, he tended not to be as involved as much as we perhaps thought he would be. Obviously, maybe that's the injury problem, but the club will know how bad the injury is more than we will ever know. And then I think with a couple of things that have gone on in the summer, not just a Sonny comment, but throwing a bottle into a crowd won't have gone down too well. And, but that might also act against him, because if there's someone out there that thinks FIFA, whatever, will want to take action against that, and you start, we don't know what action that could be. But if a club thinks he could get a 6-month ban, then obviously there's no club that's going to come in for him on September the 1st thinking he could get a 6-month ban. Nuno, what's his name? Darwin Núñez, the same types of things, You can't quite. We saw how much the FA wanted to punish Eric Dyer for just walking into a crowd after a game for an argument.
Dyer, I think it was a 5-game ban for Dyer, 4 or 5-game ban for Eric Dyer at the time.
So
that was just going into the crowd.
defending my family won't be what the FIFA's look will be. Well, that's what security guards are there for. They won't take that as a genuine defence, will they? So
No.
and I think he could be the one that finds himself maybe moving out of the picture, but it depends on what how quick on that FIFA want to, or whoever it is, whichever authority want to take action on that incident.
Yeah, I think, like you say, there might be a couple of twists and turns that maybe many might not expect during the window. But again, we'll see how that pans out. I mean, Marlon, I'll ask you the same question before we look to close this one. We've obviously seen the guys now over the 2 courses of games, 180 minutes. It's been 45 really minutes for the set of players individually. Any real genuine surprises you're going to say in terms of who will won't make the plane?
No, I think it'd just be Hill and Reguilon, which we kind of know about, and there'll probably be a couple of the youngsters that won't make the plane. But I kind of expect everyone who we class as first teamers and a couple of the youngsters to make it. I do agree with Jason on the Bentancur thing, and it would be quite interesting to see by the end of this window if Kulu is still a Spurs player. I think he might be the surprise that everyone doesn't see, and he might be the one that goes, all right, if we're going to sign someone like a striker or something, maybe we have to sacrifice Kulu, because actually he's probably our most sellable asset that's been linked away over this course of this window. Yeah, very interesting. It depends on who comes in for him, but to be linked to Napoli, and a surprise one was Villa today, is kind of going, well, who's stirring this pot? Why Kulu all of a sudden? So it will be very interesting to see if he actually will be a Spurs player by the end of the window.
I'm going to veer us off transfers. I'm taking Jason over an hour, and I'm not going to be here for a couple of weeks. Which means I'll be back in Jason's good books by the time I come back.
I was going to say, Rick, usually I'm saying the cricket's on, hurry up, but you've been on so long, the cricket's finished.
When does the underwater volleyball start? That's got to be
close to play, 248 for 3. They finished the cricket. If you're still going when the golf's still on, I'm punching you when I see you. I tell you, mate.
You know I love you. TJ, we're going to close it with you on this one. Any real genuine surprises for you? You were kind of nodding. You were nodding your head there as well when Jason was mentioning Bentancur as being maybe one that could head out the door. I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, that bloke Summer, I don't think it could get any worse in terms of footballing terms. I mean, would have been best to stay at home, wouldn't he? Really? I mean, again, you look at what's gone on, and it's been a difficult, I'd say, last 12 months of Bentancur since that injury.
Without a shadow of a doubt, coming
back
from a horrid injury, and then obviously the Matty Cash. I really feel for him because we've spoken about him so many times. I remember when he joined and I made that joke about, you and him being separated at birth, identical twins and all that kind of thing. He's a wonderful player, very elegant player. He's a very Spurs player as well. I mean, he has a bit of flair to him. He just seems to suit Tottenham so well. I do think there is an underlying quite major fitness thing with him. And again, Jason alluded to it just now. The club are going to be well aware of what's happening with him physically, and of course that affects their mentality a great deal. It is a short career for these boys. He's already 27 years old. Just something doesn't feel right with him. Again, throwing bottles there's something that's not right with him. If he were to leave, I would be sad. But if I put Tottenham ahead of sentiment and all that kind of thing, which we have to do, I wouldn't be displeased with him leaving the club. To Marlon's point about Decky, if Decky were to go, I think that might be one of the biggest regrets Tottenham would have partaken in over the last decade or so. I think he has tremendous promise, and we should actually prioritize his happiness, because if you're being tasked again in an Ange system, can I play you quote unquote out of position or in a position that I think would be more suitable to you? He has grabbed that opportunity with both hands and showed that. I mean, some of his passing today was absolutely sublime. It was like peak Eriksen. And so he's a player that I would really do everything we possibly could to keep hold of. And if that meant sacrificing Bentancur, then c'est la vie.
I find it so fascinating. I find it fascinating.
I think with Marlon's point with Kulu, I think if he was seen just as the wide right player, I would definitely be with you, Marlon, because the numbers aren't good enough from that position, and he perhaps hasn't got the speed to whip those balls across the box.
And the inconsistency that he had on it, yeah.
And that's the thing. Maybe moving inside has just given him an opportunity that that such.
But the question is there then with that, if you move him inside, is Maddison and Bergvall as well, because Bergvall obviously played that position today. Will Kulu be able to get the minutes in there? Because obviously, I think that's probably been his whole Tottenham career. He's been so inconsistent. It's up and when he's brilliant, he's brilliant. But actually, when he's poor, he is poor, and that's going to be the thing. I think if you ask all Spurs fans right now, would you be disappointed if Kulu left? I think it'll be very 50-50.
I agree. I do agree as well.
And that's the thing. And I think there's probably better players out there that could fit the system that if Kulu was to go, we could probably go get someone better. Or, like I said, you've got Maddison and Bergvall to fit in there. And maybe if dreams there, you get an Eze to come in. So this is where if Kulu if we can get anything near what we bought him for, is it a big disappointment if he was to leave? That's my only thing. And
let me throw another spanner into the works, if I may. Yeah. If these rumours of what's his name, the lad from Villa coming in,
Jacob Ramsey.
Jacob Ramsey. Yeah. What does that then do to the Kulu situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Kulusevski for me is that I think he was formidable in that first season under Conte. The problem is, I mean, we've just struggled for consistency. Again, I'm very similar to what Jason's always said about Kulu. I think you said it, Jason. There's a player in there. I've got no doubt about it. Again, we say it's about so many Spurs players. It's about trying to find that consistency week to week. That is what takes you from being, no disrespect, a fairly average player to being one of the best in the Premier League when you can do it week in, week out, and so consistent. I think that is what Spurs, have got to find, especially in this Ange system, because it is such a specific way of playing. I think Spurs have got to really try and find that between now and the end of the window. I think, at the moment, fans, I'd say, I've been fairly, I don't want to leave the show on a negative, but been maybe underwhelmed so far by the summer business. I think maybe many were maybe thinking there'll be a bit more of a prominent feature to what Spurs would have done in the window so far. Look, I think we take into account, and granted, you've had a Euros in there, you've had a Copa America in there, but guys, we're less than a month away from the season now. At this point, I think last season Spurs had got, tell me if I'm wrong, I think they had brought through the door, at least Vicario came in. I think Adogi obviously was there in terms of training again. He was bought the season before, but we had made a few more moves in the market. I think the key thing will be, I think we all want to know is that by that game Leicester coming around, we're all ready. Because I think the one thing Ange has been really consistent about is he's come through the door, that he likes business being done early. He likes people being on that training ground, ready to work with him before the season starts. So you're not in that situation where you're playing keep up. And already players are trying to get used to the style during the season. That can't happen under Ange Postecoglou. You've got to come in and have those. Is that fair, Jace?
Yeah, without a doubt. And once that Asia tour, they fly out Monday.
Yep.
So unless we sign somebody tomorrow, then there's no new signing to go on that flight. No. Or no additional signing. Yep. And then there's only Bayern Munich once we come back. So there's only one game. So if you make that signing next week, they're probably not going to fly out to Asia on the Wednesday to come back on the, within 3 days. That's just nuts. On a 12-hour flight.
I'm just trying to make sense as well in my mind that, we'd be a team that would have Timo Werner and no Dejan Kulusevski.
To be fair, even I can't qualify that one. That's before I even ask you more about Emerson Royale. Yeah. For our own helps, I'm not going to ask any more about the current players. What I am going to do is close it on Andrew's thoughts on the game. He said, look, it's just about progressing our game, keep on improving and trying to implement our principles. To be fair to the boys, they've come back in good condition. It's more about pushing on from last season and the foundation that we've created, hopefully something that better springboards us ready for this upcoming season. Look, I think it's fair to say, guys, from that closing conversation there, it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks. Who's going to be on the plane? Who isn't going to be on the plane? One thing I can tell you is I'm going on a plane very, very soon. And Jason McGovern and co are going to be here to steer you through, as well as all these guys in these next few weeks. I want to say a massive thank you. Jace, thank you, mate. You'll be back to an hour specials with Crackers and Lee. Don't you worry.
No problems, mate. The only person that's got to be on the plane more than anyone is the pilot, mate. As long as the pilot's on it, you got half a chance.
Listen, we might delay that plane depending on who Spurs can get out there on that plane in terms of players. We'll see. Jace, thank you so much. TJ, cheers, mate, it's like you've never been away, mate. Thank you so much. We'll see you back with us in pre-season. Thank you so much.
Lovely to see you, mate. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to the viewers and listeners as ever. Again, if you are viewing and listening, please make sure that you like and subscribe and say wonderful things about Ricky in the show. It's very important. I know he never asks.
You, my man.
He's far too humble and sweet, so I will do it for him. If you do enjoy watching and listening to the show, please like and share and subscribe and press buttons and like and all that sort of stuff. Lovely to
Thank
see
you
you,
so
mate.
much.
See you in a couple of weeks. Boys,
And
lovely
you too,
being on
mate.
the panel with you guys. Really
Likewise, mate.
insightful, wonderful, insightful knowledge. Thank you very much.
Bless you.
That's
Go on,
so
Jason.
seamless from TJ. We should get him on as a presenter.
Yeah.
You never know what he does in his day job, do you? The guy, unbelievable. Aren't we so humbled and blessed, aren't we just? Marlon, thank you, mate. Been a pleasure. You'll be back with us through pre-season. We'll be riding a few storms, right? I think it's fair to say in the next few weeks to come.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, and I enjoy coming on with the panel as well. Nice. Finally, I got to be on one of the legends in Jason as well. But I always loved doing the shows with TJ. And to Duvet Gate that was going on in the chat. This is what happens when you live with 4 women, all right? 3 daughters and a wife, right? So it's not my fault. They've literally taken over my room. There's Disney stuff everywhere, right? So
Big up, girl dad. Hashtag girl dad. No,
Girl
no
dad,
shame,
that's what
Marlon.
it's all
Hashtag
about.
girl dad.
Give the
Girl
guy some
dad.
credit. He's got the Spurs chair in there. Jason loves the Spurs chair, right, Jason?
I want the link. Marlon, you got to put that link out when you get that chair.
Definitely,
Got to get the chair done.
I love
I'm
that.
going to get my Minnie Mouse pajamas on now, so I'm all
You
good.
got to put me a DM, mate, with the business for that chair. I want that chair.
You heard it here first. Guys, from the wonderful Jason McGovern, from the superb TJ Ramin, from the brilliant Marlon at the Spurs Kings. We've been the last one on Spurs. Please keep safe, keep well. We'll be back with you before you know it. And as always,